There is no greater prey than the uncertain, fearful entrepreneur. Past pain informs future fear, and it shows up in the body in very unique ways depending on the situation. How fear shows up in your body in business versus relationships versus thinking about your health, all can show up different. And there's 4 different ways that I'm going to talk about today that fear shows up in the body: fight, flight, freeze, but then I'm going to add one as well. So number 1, let's talk about fight. What is fight? I have something coming toward me in life, whether it's a business decision, relationships, whether it is dealing with money, whether it is a health crisis. If my default mode, if I get locked into a fear pattern, is fight, I'm going to resist. I'm going to use force. I'm going to be really, really tense. I'm going to be using all the energy that I have to punch through what is actually in front of me. I just want to run at it, get it done. It's not as tactful as we want it to be. And especially coming at it from this energy, we're not actually looking at the energy of creating. We're looking at the energy of resisting what is and just trying to get through, just trying to adapt, trying to survive. And that is trained behavior. If you learned when you were a child that if something happened to me and I got really aggressive and it worked, things actually moved out of your way, that actually trains this pattern into your mind. Number 2, flight. If I have something coming at me that feels very scary, locks me into anxiety, into a fear pattern, the tendency can be to run away. So I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to have the conversation. I don't want to look at my bank account. I don't want to hear about my blood work. I don't want to make the decision that will expand my company because I'm too afraid it's going to fall apart. I'm just going to run away and avoid and essentially do all the things that would not move you into growth and prosperity and to more contribution because it's too scary. It's going to require you being something else. And if I'm used to running away, this is going to be the pattern. Then we have freeze. Something has happened in my nervous system that was so traumatic at one point that a learned behavior that happened is when things happen unexpected, then I freeze. I don't know what to do. I get stuck in indecision. And this is a very, very common detrimental place to be. Being locked into indecision, I believe, is one of the biggest contributors of burnout. So if I am just sitting in the place that I do not want to be because I'm too afraid to move forward or even to run away because my nervous system believes that, hey, you've made it this far. Don't do anything different that may actually change things because you might die, even though it's not real. We don't live in a time now where we're running away from snakes or tigers or in trouble with the elements. We live a pretty comfortable life. We live in our refrigerated boxes. We are largely only exposed to ego-threatening things, not life-threatening. So I have fight, I have flight, I have freeze, and my last one that not a lot of people talk about is fawn. Fawn as in Bambi, as in I go along to get along. I don't want to rock the boat. I compromise myself just to get the reaction that I want. So I'm becoming something that I'm not in order to keep the other person happy or to not change the situation. So this, I believe, is one of the biggest contributors to moral injury. Doctors and nurses have the highest rate of burnout and moral injury. And I do believe they are very, very different because they tap into different parts of the brain, different belief structures. If I'm stuck in freeze, in indecision, in ambivalence, then I burn out because I'm using all this energy just to maintain what is, even though it's incredibly stressful. I have too much cortisol. Cortisol is a good thing, but if I have too much alertness on my system, if I'm bathing in the hormones of cortisol, it starts to break things down. And if I'm in fawn, if I'm just going along to get along, I'm actually compromising my values over time. My deep-seated values of safety, of connection, of love, of gratitude. If I'm doing things just because it is the status quo, it's what it's expected of me, or it's what I've been trained to do to not affect the people around me in a negative way or bring attention to me, not according to my terms, then it actually leads to moral injury. Let's say you're a doctor and you were forced to do things while you were a doctor, maybe working in a hospital or working in another office that were not aligned to you, actually tapped into a deep value structure where you were disrupted, actually fractured, then it's going to lead to moral injury where now you can't even be a doctor anymore because your nervous system's so broken apart. These are the 4 ways that fear shows up in the body. But what are we going to do with this? I mean, it's nice to know words, it's nice to know context, but how do we identify when we're in these from moment to moment, and how do we move out of them in a way where I'm starting to move to the place where I can optimally create? I can start to create the life that I want, create the office I want, the health that I want, the relationship I want. It's going to take a level of awareness that likely you don't have just yet. Otherwise, you would have everything you want. Many times when these fear patterns show up, what we're trying to do is have a predictable outcome over something we've never done yet, which is silly at best and dangerous at worst because you won't do anything. If I am trying to control everything outside of me, if I'm wanting an expected outcome and the only thing true to life over and over again is that there is constant change, life by nature is uncertain. We can have certain predictable patterns, but it's uncertainty. And can I step into uncertainty, controlling my nervous system in a way where I am aware, I'm awake, I'm open-handed? What does that really look like? What are the three things we can only ever control? It's our thoughts, our feelings, and our actions. Anything else outside of that, I have no control over. I can take responsibility for, but I cannot control. So if I'm in control of my thoughts, I'm in control of my feelings, or at least have a heightened awareness of my feelings and allow them to flow through me, and I'm in control of my actions through discipline and through will and through grit, then I can actually start to move forward and take responsibility for a greater amount of affect. Anytime that I'm trying to get control-y about anything outside of that, whether it's people's opinions of me, even monetary goals as far as business, we can't control that. I mean, there are things that you can do to align your business so you can have predictors, but I can't control exactly what's going to come. So if at any point I'm trying to control other people's perceptions, control other people's actions, control exactly how these outcomes are happening, as opposed to just focusing on what I can control, it's going to tap me into one of these 4 F's, because I'm going to have a pattern in how I compensate for these types of changes. Anytime that I'm reaching beyond the control of what I truly have, I take away from my creative ability. I take away that ease and flow that's in my body, because you will feel stuck. You will feel either more anxious or more depressed. You'll have too much choice or feel like you don't have any choice because you're trying to control things outside of yourself, as opposed to, let me look inside and see what's going on. I can control where my center point of focus is. I can look inside and start to say, like, what are these feelings that are coming up? Am I feeling like an imposter? Am I feeling inadequate? Or am I feeling sadness? What are these things that are actually popping up with what is in front of me? Then I can identify them from moment to moment, and then I can move into action to actually correct these things, or move into action in a way that brings me more aligned to the life that I want. These programs that show up are all deeply held. They exist in the unconscious mind. A lot of these fear patterns that exist in you now were programmed into you in young childhood. So how do we start to acknowledge where these are and move forward in your life so you start to see the results on the screen of your mind actually coming to reality in a very intentional way? Because guess what? 90 to 95% of our daily thoughts, feelings, and actions are just our unconscious programs running. We are just running through our value structures and what is important to us. Whether it's tasks, relationships, health, we're just exhibiting on that on the outside what has already been deeply programmed. To start to work into this process, I believe there's 3 steps. Number 1, acknowledge exactly where you are in all phases of your life. So you can draw a 5-pointed star, and on that star you would see your business and your finances, your physical body, your emotional health, your relationship health, your mental health, and then at the center of that star is your spiritual health. If I were to take assessment of all of these things, how is my life actually performing right now in all these realms in a holistic way, the most holistic way? Get really honest. What is working? What's not working? What are challenges that I see in front of me? Where are my opportunities that I actually want to grow? So now I'm starting to break this down into actual data. Now, what do I do with that data? I start to form an ideal. Now, I'm giving you a magic wand. You can have everything you want. You just have to actually want it. You have to decide that you want it. What are those things? In all forms of that 5-pointed star. How much money do you want to make? What do you want your relationships to look like? How do you vacation? What kind of car do you drive? How is your health? What does your body look like? How long do you sleep? All of these things matter. What's your relationship to your higher power? All of these things, and getting so clear as you see other people, as clear as you see your life right now, onto the screen of your mind, what would it look like if you had a perfect life? And then now, number 3 is we get into skill acquisition mode. You've identified where you are, you've identified where you want to go, and there are obvious skills and things you do not know in order to get you where you want to be. So we get into skill acquisition mode, start getting really, really good at financial stuff, get really, really good at communication and leadership and sales, get really good at understanding health and what actually makes you healthy, not just avoiding death. Expanding these skills by nature change your behaviors, because if I am up-leveling my skills and I say, hey, to be healthy, I got to eat this instead of this, then I'm going to start eating this if it matters to me the most. If the vision is clear enough, if the pain is big enough that I want to go do the thing, I will actually use the skills I created to change my behaviors. I will say, I will lead better this way. I will lead my family better. I'll lead my office better. I will do sales in a better way because this is a better formula that works. I mean, it's 2024. There's a book you can read. There's things you can Google. Ignorance is very much a choice at this day and age, and we're all ignorant about a lot of things. But if we can step into the process of, I want to create something as opposed to being stuck into a fear pattern, now I can get the skills that I want that alter my behaviors, that eventually get into belief structure change. So remember how we talked about your unconscious mind shapes about 95 to 98% of everything that you do? Then, if I am changing my deeply held beliefs, then I'm going to start to see my life and my decisions will naturally reflect where I want to go as opposed to repeating the pattern of where I am. I will be more inclined to choose different, not harder, choose different that actually expands my life as opposed to choose the same that got me here through survival. And when we start to really zoom out of life, of the things in front of us, of this seemingly impossible challenges, they're really just opportunities. Fear is an illusion. And if I can actually look at these fears, keeping my nervous system from breaking apart, then I can get my energy right, to get the correct strategy, and then to adopt the tactics that move me away from where I am now, where I do not want to be, and moving myself to the life that I want.